You're listening to the Digital Data Café Podcast, where we talk about everything data-driven in your world. Join us each week to hear from the world's top business and industry leaders on why using data in a digital world matters. Here's your host, Albert Thompson.
All right, welcome back to NADA Day 2 in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're at the Driven IQ booth number 6943N, and we are speaking this morning. Is it still morning? Yeah,
Still morning, yeah.
With Dana Rogers from Preowned Auto Logistics. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Hey,
this
Dana.
is great. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Today, it's more important than ever to get the cars to and from the dealership, or from the customer to the dealership, depending on where they're getting their cars from. We don't have the luxury of time anymore. So tell us a couple of things about what you're seeing in the logistics world.
So really, I mean, dealer sourcing right now is key, and they've got to be aggressive. The trades disappear faster than they can. They've got to bid aggressively, and they have to get the car on the lot, just as fast.
Now, so are you seeing a lot of activity from picking up from customers, or is it a lot of auction cars?
It's really everywhere. So the consumer, they're going on these different sites, and they're getting competitive bids, and it's all over the country. It really is. Yeah. I mean, not as many auction buys right now because not enough cars are actually making it to the auction.
Right.
They're being sold beforehand, right? On these different sites like Car Off, all these new dealer source inventory source.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because Albert, drive bid,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Listen. In short, right? We believe that where banks compete for mortgage rates, why shouldn't dealers also compete for trades? And right now, from a dealer perspective, you've got your trade tools, your Kelly Blue Books, your ICOs, right? Your car offer you just mentioned, and those are great. Instant. But instant is really safe, right? Instant means it's the safe number. It's based on the year, the make, the model, where we actually believe that consumers will spend another 15, 20 minutes to get a best offer.
Right.
But there's no transparency in the marketplace, right? If a dealer A says, hey, I'm going to put an offer for X, well, dealer B should be able to see what that is so he knows or she knows what they can do to actually make that trade happen. And so, our basic line of thought is when dealers compete, consumers win. That's right. That's right. And from a logistics standpoint, Dana, what's really interesting, and we've got to talk, figuring that last mile logistics, how are you seeing that with COVID when you went through the pandemic? How did you get cars to and from? Did you get involved with some of that?
Very much. So before COVID, that was one of our specialties. So when COVID hit, this was, it was a perfect storm for us. We really, we hit big with it.
Really?
And, getting that final mile delivery to the customer, it's a lot of point of contacts, right? So the dealers, they put the order in, the car delivers, everything's fine. The customer wants updates.
Yes.
They want to know, right? They just spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
A dealer spends $20,000. They spent $20,000 on 10 cars today.
Right.
The customer spent $20,000. They want to know where their car is and
When's
who
gonna
has
be my
it, and when it's going to get there.
That's right.
And one of the challenges that I've seen, and I've had experience dealing with various companies, is when promise times, right? Promise times are tough. In everything today, the major reason / excuse, depending on, is, supply chain issue. So I know we promised
COVID.
you Wednesday, right?
Yes.
COVID. I know we promised you Wednesday, but now Wednesday comes and goes, there's no car. Thursday comes and goes, there's no car. I try to get a hold of the transporter.
Communication.
There's no
There's no communication. So
Right.
you have to communicate,
I
right?
agree.
The ETAs change. This
right.
happens. There's traffic. There's breakdowns.
Weather.
You've got to communicate with the customer. If you can do that, you win the battle.
Now, what are you seeing delivery? Are deliveries more complicated now because you're picking up more onesies and twosies?
Yeah. So in the lanes change. So before, back in the auction days, dealer would go to the auction and buy 10 cars from point A to point B.
That's right.
Now they're buying 10 cars from A, B, C, D, and F, G all over the place.
Right.
And it's not the same carrier. So it's
Right.
all different carriers. They're onesie, twosie pickups.
It's not like me saying to you, hey, load up a Stinger for me. I bought all these cars. And now, so then you have the added complication of the last thing anybody wants to see is the truck going down the highway with empty slots. Right? I mean, that's killer.
Well, and you mentioned something interesting, Danny. You talked about it's not just 10 vehicles come up from the auction and go into one location. It's here, 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 and here. And then even from the consumer perspective now with digital retailing, right? They can do the trade. They can literally maybe possibly have the car picked up from home, dropped off at the dealership, new car brought back, right? And potentially could even be at a different dealership.
Yep.
So how does a logistic company like yourself handle, these swaps? I think it's called swaps, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Swaps and so it used to be dealer swaps. With, new car dealers would swap for new inventory with other dealers. Now it's the swap is with the consumer.
Right. The swap
So
with the
the
consumer,
swap's
right.
with the consumer.
Yes.
So they deliver a new car, and the used car needs to make it back to the dealer or go to a different location, an auction or
Right.
another buyer.
And is that something that's posed a challenge for your company, or how have you guys been able to get to do that?
So there's a lot of communication. It's not as easy as just putting an order in and letting the order just happen.
Right.
You've got to communicate. There's a lot of moving parts. Because that second leg can't move until the first leg delivers.
Right.
And sometimes it might not be the same carrier either. So there might be two carriers. That carrier might not. He might be on a trip cross country. So you've really got to communicate with the customer and set that expectation so that everything does go smooth.
It's definitely a different time in your business, and I think evolution and constantly innovating is important. You talked a little bit about communication, right? Communication
That's the
with
key.
consumer. So how, from a communication standpoint, are you guys, really moving ahead in terms of like condition, and being able to do like the bill of lading and the pictures and like a condition report? Or what are some of the things you're doing there?
That's kind of evolving in our business. There's a lot of owner operators. These guys are running, 3-car wedges, and they're hard-working guys. But the last thing they want to do is jump on another app, do another app for somebody. A lot of them, they're old school. These guys are 60s, 70 years old, still out there hustling.
Wait a minute. Are you insinuating there's old school car guys out there?
This is hard. They do it. It's hard work.
Right. Well, I think not to cut you off, but from a shipping standpoint, it's father, the son, and then they got the two brothers and the uncle, right?
Exactly.
And the mom's at home in the kitchen
Booking the
That's
cars.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
cars.
That's right.
I mean, these are hard-working individuals, and it's a lot to ask them to jump on all these different platforms. And some of them just want to do that old paper condition report. So as a transport company, we've got to kind of put all those different things together,
Right.
to make it work for but basically the customer.
And the last thing at the store is that anybody wants to hear is, another login. Right? Another
Exactly,
login.
another platform, another this. So we have that. We have the portal for our dealers, but we give them a nightly update, an email. Here's the status of everything that you have in motion with us right now.
Okay.
And we find that that's been just easy. They open up the email and they read it rather than another login.
Right.
It's a lot easier
It is.
because you're notified of things when you need to be notified.
That's
Right?
right. That's right.
If you want to know, it's there. If you don't want to know, it's emotion.
Right.
The theme of this show that I've been hearing is just the underlying tone is the consumer. Everything that I'm hearing from everybody, we're starting to finally get in the mindset it's about the consumer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing it from you, communication to the consumer. And I've heard it from other dealers. And finally, it's time to think about the consumer. It's about the consumer. And
Your platform it's based on the consumer.
driven.
Right. That is the key, right? Without them, we don't have any.
We don't have anything.
We have no business.
I think our business is finally evolving to understanding we got to think about the consumer.
And the thing is, it's always been all about the consumer. It's never not been about the consumer. But we tend to go through these cycles where all of a sudden, it's like selling cars online and transporting cars, shipping cars, right? When the pandemic hit, there were people that saw this as something new. Right? It's not. 20 years ago, 20 years ago, I was selling cars, shipping cars across the country and overseas back then it was a little old school. You had the paperwork that was FedExed overnight, but they had to sign and notarize and then send back.
Right.
And then either the check had to clear that was in the envelope or the wire transfer would have to be confirmed before we can sign the transporter. But there's nothing new, but just the last 2 years, I think, has pushed our business 10 years in advance, and I'm assuming it's the same thing with transport.
Same thing, yeah. I mean, we've been lucky. We've been dealing with the consumer for a long time. We do a lot of seasonal residents that will go from the Northeast snowbirds. We love them. I mean, that's been, we love every single one of them. And, they move from the northern states to Florida to Texas to Arizona. And it's there's a lot of point of contacts, right? This is their baby they're shipping. It's not, a dealer that's got 100-car inventory.
Right.
It's just
more personal.
car. This is their baby, right? So you really have to know how to contact them.
Well, Dana, thank you very much, man.
Thanks for having me.
So
It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. So if a company wanted to get a hold of you, if there's a dealer out there listening, they need to get some transportation services.
Preowned Auto Logistics.com.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
That's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the show, my friend.
Have a great-